welcome to another episode of Riding in Cars with Books. I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Jaclyn's husband.
This again. Today we are going to be discussing Buckle Up by Lawrence Lindell.
I'm buckled up.
Good.
Okay.
It is a middle grade book published by Random House Graphic. And the whole book pretty much takes place in a car. So it felt fitting to discuss it in a car.
And graphic means it has pictures.
There's no nudity or
I'm
anything.
trying to. Why have I got to keep explaining to people what the word graphic means?
Graphic literature is not a bad thing. All right. And this is not a memoir, but I feel like it's based on his real experience, so I'm going to call it fiction, but...
Well, it's so real that it's based on someone's experience,
Yeah.
Trust me.
It's very relatable. So, Lonnie... His parents are going through a divorce, or recently went through a divorce. They live in separate houses. So he lives with his sister and his mom, and he wants to spend more time with his dad, but he doesn't like them living apart. And so his dad picks him up for school and stuff like that, and they have all these hard conversations in the car. That's basically...
Yeah, 90% of the book is actually in the car.
Yeah, really.
Not one time, it's multiple times in a vehicle.
Yeah. And the story literally is about having the capability of talking about your feelings with your parents and why the divorce is bothering Lonnie so much, why he's embarrassed about it. And then my favorite part was him and his sister bickering to each other.
In the car.
In the car. And the mom was like, you can't call each other stupid. Y'all are young, gifted, and black. So instead of calling each other stupid, they would tell each other they were young, gifted, and black. And I love that so much.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, actually. That was one of my favorite things, too.
So did you like the book?
I enjoyed the book.
This isn't your normal cup of tea.
It is not my normal cup of tea. It is not. I enjoyed the book. I could see how it'd be very relatable from a sense of like brother, sister. I didn't go through the divorce thing at a young age. I was way out of the house before my parents got divorced. But
I should have gotten divorced earlier.
Yeah. But anyway, but I mean, I thought it was an interesting look at how a kid would look at their parents getting a divorce and how it affects them in other ways than not just the parents splitting up, but how they look at it. And one of the things to me it touched on, which seems to be a problem everywhere, is communication.
Yes.
Right? So instead of actually having a conversation with your kid about everything, it's, oh, we're getting divorced, we're moving out. But like, here's all this stuff. And then they're like, well,
how do the kids handle it on their own?
Yeah.
And I don't think he was handling it very well at the beginning.
No.
But I was 10 when my parents divorced, so it was very relatable in that sense. But my parents didn't stay in the same town, so I didn't have to like go house to house every day. I imagine that could be very complicated too. Right. Instead of just like, oh, you're only at your dad's on the weekends. Like he would go to his dad's like
pretty much every day, after school
or in the morning. It was, I don't know.
Well, the mom was taking him to school and his dad was picking him up.
Yeah. And he would...
But they would go do something and then take him to
like
the
go
mom's
to the
house.
Comic shop or... Right. But he always had his dad picking him up on the corner. He didn't want his dad to pick him up from school because he didn't want his friends to see someone else picking him up. That was a big part of it, right? Like,
well, he was very embarrassed of his parents being divorced because no one else in his class had divorced parents.
Yeah, and I think that festered other problems because he wasn't talking about that.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, the parents didn't want to hear about it, right? Like they didn't. It's, you know, when parents divorce, sometimes they didn't really go this into the book, but you always see the trope of, well, you know, it's not your kid's issue, it's this, but that's not really a conversation, right?
They make it the kid's issue.
Right, but that's what I mean. They make it the kid's issue. They're like, it's not your fault we're getting divorced. We just can't get along. And it's like, well, but that's not a conversation, right? And that's kind of what this touches on. It touches more on about having those conversations.
And both of his parents would say things to him, but then they wouldn't show him that, like,
That was funny.
Um,
I enjoy the part of where the dad would sit there and go, you gotta. I'm
you have
making
to
stuff
show
up,
it. Don't just
basically.
say you're
Yeah,
sorry. You
there
have
you
to
go.
show that you're sorry.
Right.
And the kid remembered that. And so later when the dad said something stupid, the kid was like, well, you got to show that you're sorry. And he like turned it against him.
Yeah, the dad said, never say anything that you don't mean.
Yeah.
And then when the dad said something later on, the kid took it as, well, then you don't like me. And he goes, Dad goes, that's not what I said. He goes, that's exactly what you just said. And you said, never say anything that you don't mean.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, obviously you can't. And, I think I like that part of the book because let's be fair. Parents and adults can be so condescending to kids, but then you go and you basically do whatever you want to do at the end of the time. And it's like, well, how are they supposed to learn anything when you're telling them one thing and you're doing the other?
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
Like that doesn't, kids notice everything. You don't think they do, but they do.
Yeah.
And now that I work with kids, I see it so much.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Like I said, there was lots of little things in the book that I mean, there was parts of it that I like a little bit more upbeat books for the most part.
Yeah, there were sad parts.
Like there was challenges in this, right? Because it's about a kid going through divorce and then what the child is going through. But at the same time, I thought all of that was handled very well of showing you like, hey, this is what the kids kind of go through and they do see everything, which is why I think it's important. Like we talk about these all ages books a lot on here, but it's because they teach kids things and they teach adult things when the adults are willing to learn.
Yes.
Right? Like if you're willing to learn and understand and grow from it, you can get a lot from these all ages books as an adult.
Yeah. That's why I like reading them, because they're books I wish I had when I was that age.
Right.
I can still learn now.
I learn every day. Yeah.
And Lonnie's dad was his mom also, but his dad was in therapy. I don't know if
they went to family.
But I think he went by himself first, and then Lonnie eventually went as well because he had some things to work out. But yeah, they started going together to work out his feelings about the divorce.
Well, that was one of the situations of where the kid didn't want to go.
Yeah.
Because the kid goes, I'm not crazy. I don't need to go to therapy. And then the dad started saying, well, you don't have to do that. And he goes, well, you said the other day that person needs therapy because he's crazy.
Yeah.
And so once again, what am I supposed to do with this?
Kids listen to everything you're saying. Yep. And there was also some touching on other things going on in Lonnie's life, like he was questioning his sexuality, and when he finally tried to talk to his dad about that, his dad didn't react the way that he thought he would react, or whatever.
Well,
right?
it wasn't that. He wasn't trying to talk about it. All he was talking about is how cool his friends was.
Oh, he had two moms.
And then how cool his friends' two moms were.
Yeah.
And his dad lost it. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Like, that's such a weird concept. And then Lonnie sees that and how his dad reacted to that.
Right.
And he's like, but what if I'm gay? Or bi?
No, it didn't go that far into it, no.
But you can read into it.
You can read into it, but that wasn't the conversation, right? Don't put in the conversation wasn't really there.
Just sorry. You read it more recently than
That's
me.
what I'm telling you.
And he loves comics. That's kind of his escape. He goes to the comic shop with his dad, and he just likes how there's so many cool stories and comics are for everyone. Just saying.
Yes.
And I like how he goes on lots of adventures, and you can see the stories in his mind, and yeah, stuff like that.
Stuff like that.
Stuff like that. And it's a pretty basic book, but it's also very deep. I mean, the panels everything's in the car, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
They do a really good job of doing when they're doing their inner voice.
Yeah.
They draw it a little different when they're doing the inner voice, or when he's frustrated. Or when he's like frustrated, he'll do like different faces, but it's an inner voice that's different faces.
Yeah, like he's mad, so he's red, and then he's sad, so he's blue.
Right. So it's easy to pick that stuff out for, you know, all ages.
What does it mean to be bisexual? So he's questioning his sexuality. So it had a lot of good conversations in it. But my favorite part is just how you can have these conversations in a car. Because sometimes where else do you have them when you're spending most of your time in a car?
Right. Because once again, he's going to, mom's taking him to school, dad's picking him up in the afternoon. And, you know, and there's other conversations in there too about, and once again, fair, and you could probably answer this more than anything else, but it's like he stays with his mom most of the time, and that's where his sister still lives, and his sister is only a few years older than him.
Yeah.
And so that's where he lives. So he looks at his mom's house as his house.
And his dad's is he's a visitor.
And his dad is he's a visitor, and then that becomes a conversation.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of good conversations.
The dad is like, this is your house too.
Right.
But I really felt that because I only saw my dad on the weekends, and I felt like a visitor. I didn't have my own space, my own room, or anything like that. So making that space for the kid is very important.
Right.
And Lonnie had that, but that's not always the case.
Correct. Because he was only there on the weekend. He lived with his mom the rest of the time, so that was his visiting house.
Yeah. Understood.
And they did have the conversation, which I thought was good, about like, look, I know you want your mom and I to get back together, but that's not happening. And so, I mean, but it's a needed conversation, right? Like, so don't. The really good part about this book that I think that I took from this book is have the conversations.
Yes.
Don't
that's
ever
the
think.
Whole point.
Yeah. Don't ever think that your kid doesn't know what's going on, and not just about divorce, but about anything. They know what's going on. They understand what's going on, but they don't always understand why. And if you don't tell them why, it's going to be their fault, because think about
they'll make up some reason why.
Exactly. And most of the reasons is going to be, it's because I did something wrong.
Thankfully,
so have those conversations.
I didn't have those feelings, thankfully, but I also didn't have these conversations. So, like, it was never, it's like, oh, hey, your dad's leaving. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Moving on. Like, but yeah, have the conversations. This book is great at, it's so easy to just sit in a car and talk about things, or you don't always.
Like we do.
Yes, that's what we do. We have our deepest conversations in the car.
And sometimes our dumbest.
Always the dumbest.
Awesome.
Oh. Okay. So, Buckle Up by Lawrence Lindell. This is a great middle grade book, but also adults can read it too. It's very important. Have conversations. Have hard conversations with your kids, with your partner.
With adults.
Anybody.
Yep.
So, check it out.
Check it out.
Check it out. Very good. Very good. I haven't read his other book, Blackbird, yet, but we met him at SPX the previous year when he was talking about Blackbird. This one just came out this year. I really like it.
But we're buckled up.
Buckle up. All right. That's all. I'm going to keep rambling.
All right. Bye.
So thanks for watching. Like this video. Comment any comments you have. Yeah, I don't know.
Bye.
I'm not good at this part.
Bye.
Okay, bye.